Jake Martinez woke up screaming again. His shirt was soaked with sweat and his hands shook as he reached for the glass of water on his nightstand. The same nightmare had visited him every night for 3 years now. He could still hear the sound of alien weapons firing and see the bodies of his squad falling around him on that distant planet called Kepler-442. He looked at the clock. 4 in the morning. There was no point trying to sleep again. Jake got up and walked to his small kitchen in the rundown apartment he called home. The building was old and the walls were thin. He could hear his neighbor's television playing some late-night show. The sound of laughter from the screen felt strange to him now. He had forgotten how to laugh. Jake made coffee and sat by his window. Outside, Neo-Detroit was starting to wake up. Flying cars moved between the tall buildings like slow-moving fish. 3 years ago, this city had been full of victory parades when the war ended. People celebrated because humanity had survived its first war with aliens. But Jake remembered the real cost. Too many good people had died fighting the Zephyrian Empire. He finished his coffee and got ready for work. Jake worked at the shipping docks loading cargo containers onto transport ships. It was hard work, but he liked it. The job kept his hands busy and his mind quiet. Most importantly, he worked the night shift, which meant fewer people around. Crowds made him nervous now. As Jake was about to leave his apartment, he heard a strange sound outside. It was like the hum of advanced technology, but different from the usual city noises. He looked out his window and saw something that made his blood run cold. A sleek silver ship was landing in the empty lot next to his building. The ship had the curved design that he recognized immediately. It was Zephyrian. 3 tall figures stepped out of the ship. They moved with the grace that all Zephyrians had. Their skin looked like it was made of crystal, and it reflected the morning sunlight. Jake had not seen any Zephyrians since the war ended. Most of them stayed in their own space now. What were they doing here? The aliens walked straight to his building. Jake heard their footsteps on the stairs. They were coming up to his floor. His heart started beating faster. He thought about the gun he kept in his closet, but something told him this was not an attack. If they wanted to hurt him, they would not have landed so openly. Someone knocked on his door. The sound was polite but firm. Jake took a deep breath and opened the door. The 3 Zephyrians stood in his hallway looking very out of place. The one in front spoke in perfect English. Jake Martinez, we need to speak with you about King Veltar. Jake knew that name. King Veltar had been the Zephyrian commander during the war. Jake had saved his life once during a medical evacuation when both sides had agreed to a temporary ceasefire. It was one of the few good memories Jake had from that terrible time. The king is dead, the Zephyrian continued. He died 2 weeks ago. In his will, he left something to you. Jake stared at them. He left me something. Why would he do that? We do not understand it either, the second Zephyrian said. Her voice sounded disgusted, but we must follow his wishes. May we come inside? Jake stepped back and let them enter his small apartment. They looked around at his simple furniture and cheap decorations. One of them wrinkled his nose as if the place smelled bad. What did he leave me? Jake asked. The first Zephyrian hesitated. A creature from our death worlds. We call it a void hound. Its name is Grim. A pet? Jake said. Not exactly, the third Zephyrian spoke for the first time. These creatures are difficult. Even our own people fear them. They are savage and unpredictable. Most Zephyrians consider them to be abominations. Then why did the king keep one? Jake asked. The aliens looked at each other uncomfortably. King Veltar had unusual ideas about many things. He refused to explain his reasons for keeping the creature. Now we are stuck with his final request. The first Zephyrian stepped closer to Jake. You should know that you can refuse this inheritance. In fact, we would prefer if you did. The creature could be destroyed humanely. It would be better for everyone. Jake thought about this. He did not know why the king would leave him anything, especially some kind of dangerous alien animal. But the king had been different from other Zephyrians. During the war, he had shown mercy when he could have shown cruelty. He had respected human courage even while fighting against them. Where is this creature now? Jake asked. In our ship. We brought it here because the king's will specifically said it must be delivered to you personally. I want to see it first." The Zephyrians looked unhappy, but they nodded. They led Jake outside to their ship. The cargo bay opened with a soft hiss. Inside was a large metal cage. At first, Jake could not see anything in the shadows. Then 2 glowing amber eyes appeared in the darkness. The creature was huge. It looked like a wolf but much bigger. Its fur was completely black and seemed to absorb light. When it moved, Jake could see powerful muscles under its coat. This was definitely not a normal pet. "So you're the human the old king kept talking about," a voice said. Jake jumped back. The voice had come from inside the cage. It sounded like a man from Brooklyn. "Did that thing just talk?" Jake asked. "Unfortunately, yes," one of the Zephyrians said. "They all speak. It makes them even more disturbing." The creature pressed its face against the bars of the cage. "Name's Grim. Looks like we're stuck with each other now, soldier." Jake stared at the talking alien Volf. This was not what he had expected when he woke up this morning. The creature's eyes seemed intelligent and aware. There was something almost human in the way it looked at him. "The king talked about me?" Jake asked. "All the time," Grim replied. "Said you were the only human who understood what it meant to be an outsider. Said you showed him mercy when you could have let him die." The Zephyrians shifted uncomfortably. They clearly did not like listening to the creature speak. "Will you take the inheritance or not?" the first Zephyrian asked. "We have other duties to attend to." Jake looked at Grim again. The creature was watching him with those strange amber eyes. There was something in that look that reminded Jake of himself. Something lonely and discarded. "Yeah," Jake said finally. "I'll take him." The Zephyrians could not hide their disgust. They quickly unloaded the cage from their ship and left without saying goodbye. Jake was left standing in the empty lot with a giant talking alien Volf in a cage. "Well, this is going to be interesting," Grim said with what sounded like amusement. Jake unlocked the cage door. "Welcome to Earth, I guess." Getting Grim into his apartment building was harder than Jake had expected. The creature was massive and had to duck his head to fit through doorways. Mrs. Chun from the first floor saw them in the hallway and started screaming in Chinese. She ran back into her apartment and slammed the door. "Friendly neighbors you got here," Grim said as they climbed the stairs. Jake's landlord, Mr. Peterson, was waiting outside Jake's apartment door. His face was red with anger and he was holding a baseball bat. "What the hell is that thing?" Peterson shouted. "It's my dog," Jake said. That's not a dog. That's some kind of monster. I want it out of my building right now." Grim sat down and looked at Peterson with his glowing eyes. "Actually, I prefer the term enhanced canine. Monster seems a bit harsh." Peterson's jaw dropped. "It talks." "Oh. God, it talks. I also have excellent hearing," Grim added. "And I heard you complaining about the rent being too low last week. Maybe Jake should find a new place to live anyway." Peterson backed away slowly. Just just keep that thing quiet. And if it damages anything, you're paying for it." Jake unlocked his apartment door and they went inside. Grim looked around at the small space with interest. "Cozy," the alien Hound said. "Very minimal." "It's not much, but it's home," Jake replied. "Are you hungry or something?" "I could eat. What do humans usually feed their pets?" "You're not my pet." "I don't know what you are," Grim laughed. It was a strange sound, like a growl mixed with human amusement. "Fair enough, I eat meat mostly. Raw is fine, but cooked is better." "I'm not picky." Jake went to his small refrigerator and found some leftover chicken. He heated it up in his microwave and put it in a bowl on the floor. Grim sniffed it carefully before eating. "Not bad," Grim said between bites. "Better than the protein paste." "They fed me on the ship." "How long were you with the king?" Jake asked. "About 15 years. He found me when I was young. Most voidhounds get killed when they're babies. We're considered too dangerous to keep alive." "Why are you dangerous?" Grim finished eating and looked up at Jake. "We were made to be weapons. The Zephyrians created us in their labs a long time ago. We're stronger and faster than normal animals. We can think like people but fight like beasts. They wanted the perfect soldiers. What went wrong? We got too smart, started asking questions they didn't like. Like why we had to fight their wars for them. Why we couldn't make our own choices. So they decided to destroy all of us. Jake sat down on his old couch. But some of you survived. A few. We learned to hide. To pretend we were just smart animals instead of thinking beings. King Veltar was different, though. He didn't care what others Afrians thought. He kept me as his advisor and friend. Why did he leave you to me? Grim was quiet for a moment. He said you understood what it was like to be thrown away by the people you served. He said you had the same look in your eyes that I did. The look of someone who gave everything and got nothing back. Jake felt uncomfortable with how accurate that description was. He had served his country faithfully and came home broken. The government gave him a small pension and some medals, but no real help with the nightmares that haunted him. I should probably warn you about something, Grim said. I can sense emotions. It's part of what we were designed to do. Right now, you're feeling sad and angry and afraid all at the same time. Stay out of my head. I'm not reading your mind. I can just feel what you feel. It's like smell for humans. I can't turn it off. That night, Jake tried to sleep, but the nightmares came again. He was back on Kepler 442 watching his friends die. The alien weapons were firing and there was nowhere to run. He woke up screaming like always, but this time was different. Grim was sitting next to his bed, watching him with those amber eyes. Better? The alien hound asked. Jake realized that. He felt calmer than usual after a nightmare. The usual panic and fear were still there, but they felt distant somehow. What did you do? I absorbed some of your negative energy. It's another thing we were designed for. We can eat fear and anger. And pain makes us stronger and helps our handlers stay focused during battle. You can do that, yeah, but don't get used to it. I'm not your personal therapy animal. Despite his words, Grim stayed close to Jake's bed for the rest of the night. When Jake had another nightmare a few hours later, the creature was there again. To help, over the next few days, Jake and Grim slowly got used to each other. The alien hound was incredibly smart and knew things about Zephyrian technology and politics that amazed Jake. He could discuss military strategy like a general and analyze complex problems with ease. But Grim also had a sharp tongue and no patience for human stupidity. He made sarcastic comments about everything from Jake's cooking to his choice in television shows. Sometimes Jake wanted to strangle him. You watch too much news, Grim said one evening as Jake flipped through channels. It's all propaganda anyway. I like to stay informed. About what? Which politician is lying today? Which corporation is stealing money this week? You humans love to complain, but you never actually do anything about your problems. At least we don't create super soldiers and then try to kill them when they get inconvenient. Grim was quiet for a moment. Fair point. The real test of their relationship came a week later. Jake was walking home from work when he saw a crowd gathered outside his building. They were holding signs that said things like, "No aliens" and "Keep Earth Human." Someone had spray-painted, "Monster lives here" on the front wall. "There he is," someone shouted when they saw Jake. "The alien lover." The crowd pressed closer. Jake counted about 20 people. Some of them looked angry enough to fight. He thought about running, but there was nowhere to go. "Where's your pet monster?" a man with a beard yelled. "We want it gone?" "I don't want any trouble," Jake said. "Too bad?" the bearded man replied. "You brought that thing into our neighborhood. Now we're going to make sure it leaves." The crowd moved forward. Jake backed against the wall of his building. He was outnumbered and trapped. Then he heard a low growl from above. Grim was standing on the fire escape outside Jake's window. He had somehow climbed up there without anyone seeing him. The alien hound looked down at the crowd with his glowing eyes. "You want to see a monster?" Grim called out in his Brooklyn accent. "Here I am." The crowd stopped moving. Several people started backing away. Grim was an impressive sight even from a distance. Up close he was terrifying. "I suggest you folks find somewhere else to protest," Grim continued. "This human is under my protection now. Anyone who wants to hurt him will have to go through me first. It can talk, someone whispered. It can also hear really well, Grim replied, and smell fear. Right now, this whole crowd reeks of it. The protesters began to scatter. Within minutes, the street was empty except for Jake and a few neighbors. Watching from their windows, Grim jumped down from the fire escape and landed next to Jake. "You okay, soldier?" Jake nodded. He was surprised to realize that he actually felt grateful to the alien creature. "Thanks. Don't mention it. That's what partners do for each other." "Partners? That's what we are, isn't it? Two outcasts watching each other's backs." Jake looked at Grim and saw something he had not expected: loyalty, despite all his sarcastic comments and attitude. The alien Hound had risked himself to protect Jake from the crowd. "Yeah," Jake said finally. "I guess we are partners." That night, Jake slept better than he had in months. Grim curled up on the floor next to his bed like a giant guard dog. For the first time since the war ended, Jake felt like he was not completely alone. 3 weeks after Grim moved in, Jake's quiet life was interrupted by an unexpected visitor. He was making breakfast when someone knocked on his door. Through the peephole, he saw a woman with short blonde hair wearing a military jacket. "Lisa." "Blake," Jake said as he opened the door. "What are you doing here?" Lisa had been Jake's commanding officer during the war. She was smart, tough, and one of the few people Jake still trusted. But he had not seen her since the Victory Parades 3 years ago. "I need to talk to you," Lisa said. "It's important." Jake let her in. Grim was lying on the couch watching television. He looked up when Lisa entered. "So this is the famous talking alien," Lisa said. "I heard rumors, but I didn't believe them." "Most humans don't," Grim replied. "Your species prefers simple explanations." "For complex things?" Lisa raised an eyebrow. "Charming." "Jake, we need to discuss something in private." "Anything you can say to me, you can say in front of Grim," Jake said. "We're partners now." Lisa looked uncertain but sat down in Jake's only chair. "I've been working for military intelligence since the war ended. 3 months ago, I started investigating some strange financial records. Money moving between human defense contractors and unknown sources." "What kind of money?" Jake asked. "Billions of dollars. All related to weapons research and development. The weird part is that some of these contracts were signed before the peace treaty was finalized." Grim's ears perked up. "Someone was planning for the next war before this one ended." "Exactly," Lisa said, "but it gets worse. I found communication records between human contractors and what appear to be Zephyrian nobles. They're discussing ways to destabilize the peace agreement." Jake felt a cold knot form in his stomach. "You think someone wants to restart the war? I think someone never wanted it to end. There's too much money in selling weapons to both sides." Grim stood up and walked over to Lisa. "Tell me about these Zephyrian nobles. Do you have names?" Lisa pulled out a datapad. "A few. The most prominent seems to be someone called Nogel Krender." "Ever heard of him?" Grim's eyes flashed with anger. "Oh, I know that name. Krender was one of the nobles who wanted King Veltar to destroy all the Void Hounds. He said we were too dangerous to exist." "Why would he work with human contractors?" Jake asked. "Because he's ambitious and greedy," Grim replied. "Krender wants to be the next king. A new war would give him the excuse to take power and eliminate his rivals." Lisa nodded. "That matches what I've found. But here's the really disturbing part. I think King Veltar found out about the conspiracy. His death might not have been natural." Grim went very still. "What do you mean?" "The official report says he died of old age. But I found medical records that show he was in perfect health just weeks before his death. Plus, he had scheduled a secret meeting with human peace negotiators the day after he died. He was going to expose them," Grim said quietly. "That's why they killed him." Jake could see the anger building in his partner. Grim's fur was standing up and his eyes were glowing brighter than usual. "We don't know that for sure," Lisa said. "But there's definitely something suspicious about the timing." "What do you want from us?" Jake asked. "I need help investigating this. My official channels are compromised. Someone in military intelligence is feeding information to the conspirators. I need people I can trust. Why us specifically? Lisa looked at Grimm. Because he has inside knowledge of Zephyrian politics. And because no one would suspect a disabled veteran and his alien pet of conducting a serious investigation. I'm not his pet, Grimm growled. Sorry, his alien partner. Jake thought about Lisa's request. He had been trying to leave his military life behind him. The idea of getting involved in another conflict made his chest feel tight with anxiety. I don't know, Jake said. I'm not a soldier anymore. You'll always be a soldier, Grimm said. The question is whether you're going to use those skills to help people or waste them loading cargo containers. Before Jake could respond, his apartment windows exploded inward. 3 men in black clothes swung through on ropes. They had military gear and weapons that looked expensive. Get down, Lisa shouted as she drew her sidearm. Jake dove behind his couch. Grimm moved faster than Jake had ever seen him move before. The alien Hound leaped at the first attacker and knocked him to the ground. The man screamed as Grimm's claws raked across his body armor. The second attacker fired at Grimm with some kind of energy weapon. The blast missed and burned a hole in Jake's wall. Grimm rolled behind the kitchen counter and came up snarling. Jake reached for his own gun, but the third attacker was already aiming at him. Lisa shot the man in the shoulder and he spun around cursing. We need to move, Lisa yelled over the sound of gunfire. Grimm appeared behind the wounded attacker like a shadow. He grabbed the man's weapon arm and twisted until something snapped. The attacker dropped his gun and fell to his knees. The fire escape, Jake said. They fought their way to the window. Lisa covered them while Jake and Grimm climbed out onto the metal stairs. More attackers were coming up from the street below. This way, Grimm said. He led them up to the roof instead of down. On the rooftop, they could see the whole neighborhood. There were more black-clad figures surrounding the building. Whoever wanted them dead had come prepared. How did they find us so fast? Jake asked. Someone's been watching you, Lisa said. Probably since Grimm arrived. They were waiting for you to make contact, Grimm added. Now they know you're all involved in the investigation. A small aircraft rose up beside the building. It had no markings, but Jake could see armed men inside preparing to fire. We're trapped, Lisa said. Grimm looked at the aircraft, then at the next building, which was about 15 feet away. Not necessarily. What are you thinking? Jake asked. I'm thinking you humans need to trust me. Before Jake could ask what he meant, Grimm grabbed both of them and leaped off the roof. For a terrifying moment, they were falling through empty air. Then Grimm's powerful legs absorbed the impact as they landed on the neighboring building. How? Did you do that? Lisa gasped. Enhanced muscle structure, Grimm replied, among other things. They made their way across several rooftops before climbing down into an alley. Behind them, they could hear the attackers searching Jake's building. My apartment is blown, Jake said. They'll be watching it. We need a safe place to regroup, Lisa added. Somewhere off the grid. I know a place, Grimm said. There are others like me hiding in this city. They'll help us? Other Void Hounds? Jake asked. A few. We've been keeping in touch secretly. King Veltar wasn't the only Zephyrian who refused to destroy us. Some of our people escaped and found new lives here on Earth. As they walked through the dark streets, Jake realized that his simple life was over. He was involved in something much bigger and more dangerous than he had imagined. But looking at Grimm and Lisa, he also realized that he was not facing it alone. So what's the plan? Jake asked. We find out who's behind this conspiracy, Lisa said, and we stop them before they can restart the war. And we make them pay for killing King Veltar? Grimm added with a growl. Jake nodded. He was scared but also angry. These people had invaded his home and tried to kill his friends. Now it was personal. Then let's get to work, Jake said. They disappeared into the maze of city streets. 3 unlikely allies united against a conspiracy that threatened both their worlds. Grimm led them through a series of abandoned subway tunnels that most humans had forgotten existed. The old metro system had been shut down when the city built its flying car network, but the tunnels remained. Perfect for those who wanted to stay. Hidden. How do you know about this place? Lisa asked as they walked through the darkness. We're good at finding forgotten spaces, Grim replied. Humans build things and then abandon them. We just move in after you leave. They came to a heavy metal door marked with symbols that Jake did not recognize. Grim scratched at the door in a specific pattern. After a moment, it opened to reveal another void hound. This one was smaller than Grim, but had the same glowing amber eyes. Grim, the other creature said. What brings you to the underground? Trouble, Shadow, the kind that affects all of us. Shadow looked at Jake and Lisa with suspicion. You brought humans to our sanctuary. These humans are different. They're trying to stop a war. Shadow considered this, then stepped aside to let them enter. Behind the door was a large chamber that had been converted into a living space. Jake counted at least 6 other voidhounds of various sizes. They all stopped what they were doing to stare at the newcomers. Brothers and sisters, Grim announced, we have a problem. Over the next hour, Grim explained everything they had learned about the conspiracy. The other voidhounds listened with growing anger. Jake was surprised to learn that they had been monitoring Zephyrian communications from Earth. We've been tracking Noble Krender's activities, a large female voidhound named Fang said. He's been making secret trips to this system, always meeting with the same human. What human? Lisa asked. A weapons contractor named Marcus Webb. He owns several companies that make military equipment. Lisa pulled out her data pad and showed them Webb's photograph. This guy. That's him, Fang confirmed. They meet at his private facility outside the city. What kind of facility? Jake asked. Military research and development. Heavy security, guards with advanced weapons. Grim's eyes lit up with interest. What kind of research? From what we can tell, they're trying to recreate the Voidhound enhancement process. They want to make human super soldiers. Jake felt sick. They're trying to make more of you. Not exactly, Shadow said. They're trying to make weapons that they can control. Soldiers who will follow orders without question. Unlike us, Grim added with dark humor. Lisa was studying the information on her data pad. If Webb and Krender are working together, they might have evidence of the whole conspiracy at that facility. It's heavily guarded, Fang warned. Even for us, it would be dangerous. We don't have a choice, Jake said. If they're planning to restart the war, we need proof to stop them. The Void Hounds spent the rest of the day planning their assault on Webb's facility. Jake was amazed by their tactical knowledge. They understood military strategy better than most human generals he had known. We go in tomorrow night, Grim decided. 3 teams. Shadow and Fang created distraction at the main gate. The rest of us go through the underground maintenance tunnels. What about us? Lisa asked. You stay here where it's safe. Like hell we do, Jake said. This is our mission too. Grim looked at him with something that might have been respect. You're not enhanced like us. You could get killed. I've been in combat before. I can handle myself. And I'm trained in military intelligence, Lisa added. You'll need someone who knows what to look for in their computer systems. After some argument, they agreed that Jake and Lisa would accompany the main team, but they would stay back while the Void Hounds dealt with the security forces. The next evening, they approached Webb's facility through the old storm drain system. The underground tunnels led directly beneath the research complex. Fang had been right about the security. Jake could see guard towers and patrolling soldiers through the drainage grates. Remember, Grim whispered as they prepared to breach the facility, we're not trying to start a war. We just need the evidence. What if they try to stop us? Jake asked. Grim's eyes gleamed in the darkness. Then we stop them first. The assault began at exactly midnight. Shadow and Fang attacked the main gate with roars that sounded like demons from hell. Security forces rushed to respond to the obvious threat while Grim's team slipped into the facility through a maintenance entrance. The research building was a maze of corridors and laboratories. Jake followed Grim through the complex, amazed by how silently the massive creature could move. Behind them, 2 other Voidhounds covered their retreat. They found Webb's office on the 3rd floor. Lisa went to work on his computer while Jake and Grim watched the hallways. The sound of alarms and gunfire echoed from outside. "Got it," Lisa whispered. "Communication records, financial transfers, meeting schedules. This is everything we need." "Copy it all," Jake said as Lisa worked. Grim suddenly tensed. "Someone's coming, multiple targets." Jake drew his weapon and took position by the door. A moment later, armed guards appeared in the hallway. They were wearing advanced body armor and carrying energy weapons that Jake recognized from the war. "Military-grade equipment," Jake observed. "These aren't regular security guards." The guards opened fire without warning. Energy blasts burned holes in the walls around Jake's position. He returned fire with his conventional weapon, but his bullets barely scratched their armor. Grim moved like liquid shadow. He slipped past the guard's line of fire and attacked from behind. His claws found the weak points in their armor with surgical precision. One by one, the guards went down. "Done," Lisa announced. "I've got everything." More guards were approaching from both directions. They were trapped in the office with nowhere to run. "Window," Grim said. "We're 3 floors up," Jake protested. "Trust me." They shot out the office window, and Grim lowered Jake and Lisa to the ground with a rope made from torn curtains. Then he leaped down himself, landing in a crouch that absorbed the impact, but as they ran toward the extraction point, more trouble appeared. Marcus Webb himself emerged from the main building with a squad of heavily armed mercenaries. And beside him walked a tall figure that made Grim snarl with hatred. "Noble Krender," Grim growled. The Zephyrian noble looked exactly like the other aliens Jake had met, but there was something cold and cruel in his crystalline features. He pointed at Grim with obvious disgust. "Kill the abomination, Krender." "Ordered. Take the humans alive." The mercenaries opened fire with weapons that seemed designed specifically for fighting void hounds. Energy nets and sonic disruptors filled the air. Grim dodged and weaved, but Jake could see that he was struggling. "We need backup," Jake said into his radio. "On the way," Shadow's voice replied. The other void hounds appeared from multiple directions, moving like ghosts through the facility's shadows. The battle became a chaotic melee of claws, fangs, and high-tech weapons. During the fighting, Jake found himself face-to-face with Webb. The contractor was holding a strange weapon that hummed with alien energy. "You have no idea what you're interfering with," Webb snarled. "The next war will make us both rich and powerful." "Over my dead body," Jake replied. "That can be arranged." Webb fired his weapon. Jake dove aside and the energy blast melted a hole in the concrete wall behind him. He rolled and came up firing. His bullet struck Webb in the chest and the contractor went down. Meanwhile, Grim was engaged in single combat with Krender. The Zephyrian noble had some kind of energy blade that could cut through almost anything. But Grim was faster and more experienced in close quarters fighting. "You were created to serve," Krender hissed as they fought. "Not to think for yourselves." "We were created to be better than you," Grim replied. "And we are." The fight ended when Grim's claws found Krender's throat. The noble fell without another word. As the echoes of battle faded, Jake surveyed the scene. Webb was dead. Krender was dead. Several mercenaries and guards had been killed or wounded, but the Void Hounds had suffered casualties too. One of Shadow's pack was badly injured. "Did we get what we came for?" Grim asked. Lisa held up her datapad. "Everything. Financial records, communication logs, evidence of the whole conspiracy. This will be enough to expose them." "Then let's get out of here," Jake said, "before more security forces arrive." As they retreated through the storm drains, Jake realized that they had won this battle, but the war was far from over. Webb and Krender were dead, but they were just 2 pieces of a larger conspiracy. There would be others trying to restart the conflict between humans and Zephyrians, but for the first time since the nightmares began, Jake felt like he was fighting for something that mattered. He had found his purpose again, and it was standing right beside him with glowing amber eyes and a Brooklyn accent. "What's next?" Jake asked as they made their way back to the underground sanctuary. "Now we take this evidence to people who can use it," Lisa said. Government officials, news organizations, anyone who can help expose the truth. And then, Grimm added with a predatory smile, we hunt down the rest of the conspirators. The evidence from Webb's facility was everything Lisa had hoped for and more. The data showed a conspiracy that reached into the highest levels of both human and Zephyrian governments. But their victory was short-lived. 3 days after the raid, Lisa disappeared. Jake found her apartment torn apart and signs of a struggle. Whoever had taken her was sending a message. They wanted Jake to know that his friend was in their hands. They're using her as bait, Grimm said as they examined the destruction. They want us to come after her. Then that's what we'll do, Jake replied. It's obviously a trap. I don't care. She risked everything to help us. I'm not abandoning her. Now, Grimm looked at Jake with what might have been approval. I was hoping you'd say that. They returned to the underground sanctuary where the other Void Hounds were waiting. Jake was surprised to see that their numbers had grown. Word of the raid had spread through the hidden network of Void Hounds across the city. More of them were arriving every hour. How many are we now? Jake asked. 37, Shadow replied, with more coming. Jake stared at the assembled creatures. Each one was a living weapon, bred for war and trained in combat. Together, they represented more firepower than most human military units. We've been talking while you were gone, Fang said, about what comes next. The conspiracy goes deeper than we thought, another Void Hound named Blade added. We've been monitoring communications across multiple systems. This isn't just about restarting the war between humans and Zephyrians. What do you mean? Jake asked. They want to create a new kind of conflict, Grimm explained. One where they control both sides. Human super soldiers fighting enhanced Zephyrian troops, all manufactured by the same group of conspirators. Perpetual war for profit, Jake said with disgust. Exactly. And they're closer to success than we realized. Shadow pulled up a holographic display showing a facility on the edge of the solar system. This is where they're holding your friend. It's also where they're conducting their final experiments. Jake studied the display. The facility was enormous, built into an asteroid that had been hollowed out and converted into a military base. It bristled with weapons and defensive systems. How do we get in there? Jake asked. We don't sneak in, Grimm said. We go in hard and fast, all of us together. 37. Void Hounds against an entire military base. 37 Void Hounds who are tired of hiding, Fang corrected. We've been living in shadows for too long. It's time to show the galaxy what we're really capable of. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. He was seeing something he had never witnessed before. The Void Hounds were coming together as a pack. Not just a group of individuals, but a coordinated military force. What about the other conspirators? Jake asked. The ones who aren't at that facility. We've been tracking them, Blade said. There are 17 key figures spread across human and Zephyrian space. Politicians, military leaders, business, executives, all of them profiting from the conspiracy. 17 targets? Grimm mused. Sounds like we'll need to split up. Over the next 12 hours, they planned the most complex military operation Jake had ever been part of. The Void Hounds would divide into hunting packs and strike simultaneously at all 17 targets. Meanwhile, Jake would lead the main assault on the asteroid facility to rescue Lisa and destroy the super soldier research. You realize this will change everything, Jake said to Grimm as they prepared for the mission. Once we do this, there's no going back to hiding. Good, Grimm replied. I'm tired of pretending to be less than I am. The assault began at dawn. Across human and Zephyrian space, Void Hound packs struck their targets with surgical precision. Years of hiding had taught them to move unseen and strike without warning. The conspirators never knew what hit them. Jake rode with Grimm's pack in a stolen transport ship as they approached the asteroid facility. Through the viewport, he could see the massive structure rotating slowly in space. Defensive turrets tracked their approach but held their fire. They were expected. They want us to dock, the pilot said. Then let's not disappoint them, Grimm. replied Dot. The transport docked at the facility's main airlock. As soon as the doors opened, they were met by a squad of guards wearing experimental armor. But these weren't ordinary human soldiers. Jake could see immediately that they had been enhanced somehow. They moved too fast and their eyes glowed with artificial light. "The super soldiers," Jake said. "First generation," Grim observed. "Crude, but effective." The enhanced guards opened fire with weapons that seemed designed specifically for fighting voidhounds. Energy nets and sonic disruptors filled the docking bay. But Grim's pack was ready for them. The voidhounds moved like they shared a single mind. They flanked the guards, used the facility's own structure for cover, and coordinated their attacks with perfect timing. Jake had never seen anything like it. This was what they had been created for. "This way," Grim said as they fought through the facility. "I can smell Lisa's scent. She's deeper inside." They battled their way through corridor after corridor. More enhanced guards appeared at every turn, along with automated defense systems and energy barriers. But nothing could stop the coordinated assault of an entire voidhound pack. Jake found himself fighting beside creatures that were works of art in motion. Each voidhound was perfectly adapted for combat, but together they were something greater than the sum of their parts. They communicated through growls and body language that Jake was beginning to understand. "Left corridor," Jake called out as he spotted movement on his motion detector. Two voidhounds immediately moved to cover that direction while the others continued the main advance. They trusted Jake's tactical input completely, treating him as an equal member of the pack. They found Lisa in a laboratory deep within the facility. She was strapped to a medical table surrounded by monitoring equipment. Scientists in white coats were running experiments on her, trying to understand how human physiology might be enhanced. "Step away from her," Jake ordered as they burst into the lab. The scientists scattered, but the lab was also guarded by more enhanced soldiers. These ones were different from the others. Bigger, stronger, with modifications that made them look almost alien. "Second generation," Grim snarled. "They're getting better at this." The enhanced soldiers fought with inhuman speed and strength. Their weapons could punch through armor and their reflexes were faster than normal humans. But they lacked something that the voidhounds possessed. They had no pack instincts, no coordination beyond basic military training. Grim and his pack surrounded the enhanced soldiers and took them apart systematically. It was like watching wolves hunt deer. No matter how strong the individual prey, the pack always won. Jake freed Lisa while the voidhounds secured the laboratory. She was weak but conscious. "They were trying to recreate the enhancement process," she whispered. "Using my DNA as a baseline for human compatibility." "It's over now," Jake said. "We're getting you out of here." "Not yet," Grim said from across the lab. "Look at this." He was standing in front of a massive computer terminal that showed a map of the galaxy. Red dots marked locations throughout human and Zephyrian space. "These are all their facilities," Grim explained. "Dozens of them. Research labs, training centers, weapons factories. The conspiracy is huge." Jake stared at the display in horror. Webb's facility had been just one small piece of something much larger. "We can't hit all of these," Jake said. "No," Grim agreed, "but we can do something better." He began typing commands into the computer system with surprising skill. "I'm uploading all this data to the Galactic Communication Network. Every news organization, every government office, every military command. In 5 minutes, everyone in both empires will know the truth." As Grim worked, alarms began sounding throughout the facility. Through the laboratory windows, Jake could see lights flashing red. "They're activating the self-destruct," Lisa said weakly. "How long do we have?" Jake asked. 60 seconds, Grim replied without looking up from the computer. "Done. The data is uploaded." They ran for the docking bay as the facility began to shake apart around them. Emergency bulkheads were sealing automatically, trying to trap them inside. But the voidhounds were too fast and too smart. They found alternate routes and secret passages that the facility's designers had never intended. Jake carried Lisa while Grim and his pack cleared the way ahead. They reached their transport ship with only seconds to spare. As they flew away from the asteroid, it exploded in a brilliant flash of light. "It's finished," Jake said as he watched the debris scatter into space. "No," Grim replied. "It's just beginning." Over the following weeks, the evidence they had gathered sparked investigations throughout both empires. Government officials were arrested, military leaders were court-martialed, and business executives saw their companies shut down. The conspiracy crumbled as the truth became public knowledge, but the real change was in how people saw the Void Hounds. No longer hidden monsters to be feared, they became symbols of justice and courage. Several Zephyrian colonies offered them citizenship and homes. Human worlds invited them to serve as security consultants and military advisors. Jake found himself offered positions in both human and Zephyrian intelligence services, but he chose a different path. Along with Grim and several other Void Hounds,